Welcome back, listeners, to the third episode of the Swim Guys podcast, and we have another great one for you today. This is your co-host, Jason Hughes, and I'm going to start this episode with a very quick apology or explanation for this intro. Rory and I recorded this episode months ago, and we had a beautiful introduction, if I do say so myself, that became a little stale-dated by the delayed launch of our podcast. We really wanted to start this podcast back in June, and it ended up being delayed by a few months. Life really gets in the way sometimes, not to mention us underestimating how long it was going to take this dusty brain of mine to learn new technology, editing, etc., etc. The good news for all of you listening, though, is that in the time it took me to learn how to do some of these skills in a rudimentary way anyway, we also recorded a ton of episodes, probably enough to get us through the end of the year anyway, so you're stuck with us for the foreseeable future. Anyway, today's show is with the amazingly empowered Kara Lynn Joyce. Kara is a 3-time Olympian who was able to amass 4 Olympic silver medals into her collection, not to mention 7 World Championship medals and a few thousand NC2A titles. Currently, she is the founder of the Lead Sports Summit for teenage girl swimmers ages 13 to 18, the second of which just wrapped up a couple weeks ago. Rory and I think that this initiative that she has taken with the summit is very important, and we were very excited to speak with her about it. Even though this year's summit is now complete, we encourage you to check out the website and think about next year's. You can find a link to the site, to the Lead Sports Summit site, in our show notes on our website, swimguys.com. Also linked in our show notes will be Kara's podcast, the FemPower podcast on the Wisp Sports Network. That's right, she's a fellow podcaster, and we couldn't be more proud of her. Even if we're jealous of some of the guests she's able to get on her show, please support Kara and download her show. I found it to be great listening, even if I wasn't her target demographic, and I hope that she continues to release great content that will keep us all coming back for more. And like I said, you'll find a link to her podcast in our show notes. And with that, Rory and I would like to introduce you to the great Kara Lynn Joyce. Kara, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So this is Jason talking to you, and I'm just going to introduce you quickly to my partner, Rory. You haven't spoken to him yet.
Hi, Kara. How you doing? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah. This will be really fun.
Yeah. So it's we'll just get right to it because we record the intro separately, just as kind of a reminisce about how the interview was and who you are. And your resume is too big for us to take up your time now, but I just want to say thank you. We're here with the great and powerful Kara Lynn Joyce. I don't even know what to say at this point, but 4-time Olympic medalist, 4-time long course world champ medalist, 18-time NC2A champ, and I'm gonna pass it over to Rory for a second, and then we're gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions.
Awesome.
So get ready to dig deep.
Hi, Kara. So, yeah, I'm very excited, and thanks for being on with us today. We're both honored to have you on. I'm going to start out really simple, actually. How does a girl from Brooklyn, New York, get involved in swimming?
All right. So, I did grow up in New York. I grew up mostly upstate, but my brothers and I were all born in Brooklyn. My dad's side of the family is New York, city, born and raised. And when we were really little, my brothers were in the backyard trying to break up the cement so that they could grow grass and play. And it broke my mom's heart. And she was like, okay, we're moving out of the city. And so we ventured upstate after that. But I started swimming on a YMCA team in Saratoga Springs. My oldest brother, so my brothers' names are Sean and Kevin. Sean's the oldest, and he's 4 years older than me, and then Kevin is below him, and he's 2 years older than me. And my oldest brother came home from school, and he was like, Mom, I want to join the swim team, blah, blah, blah. And that same day I came home from school, and I was like, Mom, I want to do tumbling. I want to be a gymnast like all my friends. And since I'm the only girl and the youngest, it was swim team because that's what the older siblings wanted to do. And it wasn't my first choice, but I'm 6 feet tall, so gymnastics would have never worked out for me in the end.
No, I can't see that being great.
I'm sorry?
No, I can't see gymnastics being the ideal choice for you.
No, I can only imagine how disastrous that would have been.
And were there any other sports? Like, did you when it became clear that you were going to, I guess, be a tall woman, and you were, in the high school years or in the later grades, did you ever think about anything like volleyball, basketball, rugby?
Well, like growing up, my brothers and I, we played together, like neighborhood stuff, like street hockey, basketball, a bunch of made-up games and things like that. But I never really played any other like formal games, formal sports. And I'm not coordinated. So to give you maybe a little bit more context, when my dad was growing up, he's one of 7, and I'm pretty sure all of his brothers and sisters were on the swim team. And one of his brothers swam at Rutgers. And so swimming was like, how they grew up. They all were lifeguards at Coney Island. And then when my mom was growing up, she was one of 11, and 10 of them swam. So it was like a very natural thing for like us to be swimmers, and we never like ventured into other sports. And my mom was also the coach of the team, so it was like we will be swimmers, and it kind of took up all of our time, like right from the beginning. You know how swimming is.
So just going back to your mom's family quickly, how did one of them get excluded from being able to swim or being allowed to swim?
Yeah, well, so if you know how the family works, it's not that difficult to see. There is 9 girls and 2 boys in that family, and the oldest one, I think, was the only one that didn't end up. He's a boy, and he didn't end up being a swimmer. But it was just kind of like it kind of makes sense. Like, the younger siblings found it, and he never really ventured into it.
Oh, okay. And what were some of actually? I'm going to quickly introduce we're going to circle back to the Lead Sports Summit and the empowerment and the confidence coach that you're working with. But I want to touch on, I guess, your early years. Were you always a confident person?
No, I don't know if like I can say like I have always been a confident person. I think confidence is something that it comes and goes in life. There are times when you feel on top of the world, and there's times when you feel beneath it. And if you have the right tools and, the right people around you, I think that's how you can constantly, work on your confidence and become, the confident person that you need to be when it really matters. But I would say overall, though, my support system growing up, my brothers and my parents and my friends, they made me feel really good. And like I'm used to just like racing the boys because, that's how I grew up. And so like in practice, my brothers, like they would kind of pick on me, like, you're not going to let me beat you on this set, are you? You're not going to let like Zach Girl win in a race, are you? And I'd be like, no, of course not, and that would kind of like light the fire in me. But,
so they would get you to the point that your rage would start boiling over, and that's what would drive you.
Or it would be like, yeah, no, I can do it. I can beat those girls because I beat the boys every day, like having that, as a young kid, I think really helps like with my confidence and helped me learn where my confidence comes from, because I think we all generate our confidence from different areas, from different places. And I knew at a young age what gave me confidence. And for me, that was just going to practice and working my butt off every day and beating as many people as I could on a daily basis.
That's awesome. So, based on that and from your swimming experience, would you say that you're extrinsically motivated or intrinsically motivated when it comes to swim racing?
Definitely intrinsically. So there's like, you kind of reflect back on your career when you're done. It's very difficult when you're still competing to be like, wow, I'm so good. I did that. I accomplished this. But the further removed I am from my career, and I'm about 6 years retired now, the more I can kind of look back and reflect on, pivotal moments and things that, made me the swimmer that I was. And I think for me, it wasn't really about like, I need to win every single race and I need to make the Olympics and I need to, do all of these things. It was just like, I had this like burning desire inside of me. Like, I just don't know how good I can be. And I want to work hard every single day because I want to know what this body is capable of, this God-given talent that I have, like how far can I take it and what am I capable of? And, I'm also the kind of person that I never even took a Flintstone vitamin. Like I I've never taken supplements or anything like that. I wanted to fuel my body on real food and just know, like, you know, how good can this body, like, just how good is it naturally? And I don't want to do anything to alter, you know, what I'm given. So that's kind of always been how I am.
That's amazing. You must be tremendously satisfied with all your accomplishments. That is fantastic. So I want to ask, and maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit. You've been in so many different competitions, but is there one race, and I mean, I have a few that I'm thinking of for you, but is there one race that really stands out to you that I'm sure you're proud of all of them or a lot of them, but is there one that stands out?
And if you give the wrong answer, Rory will tell you which one should stand out for you.
Well, you know, it's funny. Like I can look back on the 21 years that I swam, and there are so many pivotal moments that led to the next great moment. And, you know, I can say, like, gosh, the first time that I broke 30 in the 50 free, as silly as that sounds, you know, that's not some big life accomplishment, but I know the moment that I was in and the pressure I was under, and I know how I learned from that, and it led me to, you know, my next great thing and the next great thing. There's probably two races. I'll name one, and it's like hands down by far my favorite race of all time. And it's when I made my third Olympic team in 2012 at the Olympic trials. I swam the 100 free earlier on at trials, and I think I got like 22nd place. I didn't even make semifinals. But I knew going into that meet that the 50 free was going to be my best chance. Even though they only take top 2 in the 50 free and they take top 6 in the 100, I still knew that the 50 was my best chance. And the 50 has always been my baby. It was my first trials cut. It was my first, you know, national high school record. The 50 was always like the benchmark for me. My first American record, same. And I knew, like, you know, and unfortunately for 50 freestylers, for women 50 freestylers at Olympic trials, the 50 free is the last day, the last event, the last opportunity to make the Olympic team. So, you know, my poor parents, my poor family gave them probably ulcers all week waiting for this one race, this 24-second race. But I knew that I was not, like, in anybody's bracket to qualify for that team in the 50 free. There was other women in the race that, you know, had a better go at the last 4 years than I had. You know, I had a very rocky 4 years between 2008 and 2012. But in my heart, I knew that I was fully prepared. You know, I had put money in the bank for a long time, and I hadn't seen the return yet, but I knew that I was fully prepared to give every single thing that I had in that race. And whether that got me 4th place or whether that got me 2nd place, I was totally okay with it, because I was ready in that moment to just like, here it is, Kara, like, you have the opportunity right now to give it everything. And, you know, the race went as perfectly as it could for me, between, you know, my start, my breakout and all of that. And when I touched the wall and I saw 2nd place, I was definitely shocked, but I was like, you know, you did this. Like, this wasn't luck. This wasn't, you know, like lightning striking you. Like, you did this. And I didn't go a best time in that race. You know, I went 24/7. My best time's 24/5. I didn't win, right? I got 2nd place. I didn't break a record. I've broken records before. I didn't do all of those things that, you know, from the outside might determine whether it's your best swim or not, but I did everything in that moment that I was capable of. And so that is always stands out. Long story, but that stands out as my favorite race.
No, I think that's a great story. And I'm actually glad you brought up that particular race, just because of the documentary that people can see on Netflix, Touch the Wall. People can, if people wanted to, you know, I'm sure everybody that's listening has Netflix, but they can really see, I guess, what was that filming? About a year, a little bit more than a year leading up to that specific race.
Yeah. About a year and a half leading up to the 2012 Olympics. Touch the Wall documented Missy Franklin and I's journey. And I just gave like the 4-minute backstory, but you can watch the 100-minute backstory.
Yeah, exactly. I just watched it again yesterday just to kind of refresh my memory on it, because it's a couple years old, but it was interesting how, you know, you had changed programs. So you moved to Colorado to train for a good section before moving to, was it Carolina?
Yeah. So I moved from California to Denver, Colorado in April of 2011. Mm-hmm. And everyone was like, you are crazy to move this close to Olympic trials. Mind you, it was over a year away, but that was like the thinking, like, are you sure you want to do this close to trials? And I did it. And then it, trusting my gut, after 1 year's time, I was like, this was not the right move for me, and I need to move again, or I need to just step away and retire and not even go to trials in 3 months.
It's very interesting that you brought that part up. So you came to the realization that, I've never heard you say anything negative about the program, but it just wasn't a good fit.
Right.
And so that must have shaken your confidence a little bit. And you just said you were thinking, should I retire? Should I even go to trials? How did you maintain that drive to make another move and so close? And this, I think this stuff is really important. Just, I'm an adult and I still get rattled by things, and I've quit before, but I can't imagine younger people that don't have the same kind of resources that we may have as we get older. How do you move forward from that? What kept you going, and what made you keep going, leading up so close to the trials again?
Yeah, well, the thing that had always fed my confidence, like I mentioned, was the fact that I wanted to be, and I needed to be, the hardest working person in the pool. Like that doesn't matter if you put me in the sprint group, if you put me in the distance group, like I need to beat everybody. I need to win. I need to show myself what I'm capable of, so that when I step up on the blocks and I look left and I look right, I can say I worked harder for this moment than anyone else. And so when I was in Colorado for a year, I worked hard every single day. Like, I wanted to be on that Olympic team in 2012 more than anything. And I knew that the hard work was there, but, having a lot of experience in the sport and being 25, 26 years old, I also knew I'm not getting the right kind of training that I need. I'm training and I'm working my butt off, but it's not the right kind that's specifically for, an older sprinter in the twilight of her career. It was more suited, understandably so, for a 17-year-old 200 backstroker. And so I knew that if I left, it's not like, oh man, I really gotta, I need to go to, Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm going to have to really start to work hard if I want to make this Olympic team in 10 weeks. It was like, no, I just need to change the kind of training that I'm doing, because the hard work is still in the bank. It's still in there, and it just hasn't shown its face yet.
Great. And touching one more time on your time in Colorado, I noticed it was a pretty pivotal scene in the documentary where you spoke out against a specific set that you didn't think was going to work for you, or maybe you didn't think it was going to work for the team. You had disagreed with what the coach was doing on that particular day. And that's not something I ever saw as somebody swimming in club swimming. I see it in master swimming, where we all whine and we're all hypochondriacs. Yeah. But did you grow up, or were you raised in a swimming environment where that kind of, I don't want to say back talk, that's not what it was, but where that kind of communication was okay? Yeah. Or
no, so it's interesting for me. Like, I'm so glad that moment was documented. And I think for people that maybe don't know me or don't know the career that I've had, it's like, wow, that girl is throwing a temper tantrum and she looks like a prima donna. But for me in that moment, I said, I'm the kind of swimmer, I want to work hard every single day. And, whatever my coach gives me, I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to blow past what their expectations are. That's my approach. Never in my 20-something years of swimming had I talked back to a coach, had I, said, I'm not doing a set, had I gotten out of the pool. I have never done that in my life. And I knew in that moment, that was the gut check. That was the 1 year mark that I was at that program. And we were about to head out to, the next day we were leaving for the last competition before Olympic trials. And I hadn't been swimming fast, and I knew, I was like, Kara, you got to swim fast at this meet to give you the confidence to swim fast at trials. This is my last benchmark swim, my last, chance to compete and make some progress, get a little bit closer towards what I want to do at Olympic trials. And so, trusting my gut has been the thing that has served me the best. And so, when we got a kick set that was 3,000 meters of hard kicking, I was like, oh God, my legs are going to die at this meet if I do a big, middle of the season style kick set. And I knew as soon as I opened my mouth that I was going to end up leaving the program. I knew that specific thing was going to take me away from the program. And I was okay with it because, what am I going to do? Be quiet, do the set, swim like crap at the next meet, and then not make the Olympics. That was the alternative. But I also knew that those kids on the team, even Missy Franklin and the other girls that were there, I knew that they looked to me. And so having somebody on the team that's speaking out against the practice is not going to give everybody else confidence. It's not going to, and as soon as I start speaking out, you can hear everybody else like, yeah, this does stink, blah, blah, blah. And it's not the kind of environment that I wanted to, inspire and bring with me to a program. So for me and my guy, I was like, okay, Kara, like, you're going to have to stand up right now. Like, this is the last straw, and you're going to speak out, and now you're going to have to go find another place to swim. So that's kind of what happened there. And I've had a lot of club coaches and club swimmers that are like, if I don't like a set, can I yell at and I'm like, well, maybe after you've made your second Olympic team and you're going for your third and you're 26 years old, that's when you can speak out. But up until that point, you should probably do what you're told.
That's hilarious. And so, Kara, is there a specific coach who sort of stands out over your career that really resonates with you, or their particular style worked with you best?
I've been so lucky, and especially, hearing other athletes' stories in the last couple months of young women. I'm just so fortunate that I have always had phenomenal coaches and mentors that had my best interest, and starting with my mom. She was my coach for 10 years from the time I was 5 until I was 15. And then my coach after that was John Urbanchek. Like, it just doesn't get any better.
It doesn't get any bigger than that, does it?
Yeah. And he took me under his wing when I was in high school, and I trained with the Michigan men's team, and I was his first female Olympian, when I made my team in 2004. And he has been like a second grandfather to me, ever since then, my whole life. And I say second grandfather because I've had a second father, and that was my next coach, Jack Bowerly at Georgia. Jack and I worked together for 7 years, and, I trained with him leading into 2004. He took me to the 2008 Olympics, and, we also had an amazing career. He's the reason I had such a great college career at Georgia. And also, Jack is still a dear friend of mine to this day, but I think not necessarily like there's a certain style of coaching that works for me, but I think having a great person behind the coach is what I've resonated most with, and somebody that I can look up to, and somebody that's a mentor to me, and somebody that I respect and that I really trust. And I've had that with, all of my main coaches in my career. And I understand how fortunate I am, and how that is not like the norm, that you just kind of get lucky to have the best coaches, of all time that happen to coach you. So I feel very, very fortunate in that respect.
Oh, that's fantastic. Actually, I wanted to, you had mentioned earlier, you come sort of from I would say, a different background than a lot of swimmers, in that you came from swimmers. And so I guess my question would be, there's a lot of, great little swimmers out there whose parents don't know anything about the sport, or are new to the sport and didn't swim themselves. What kind of advice would you offer those parents of kids who are maybe showing some great, ability at a young age?
Yeah, I would say it's just so important for parents to be parents, and not for parents to try to be coaches, because that gets very confusing for the kids. And, your job as a parent, you need to support your kids' endeavors, and that's academics, it's extracurricular, it's sports, and you're there to support. And then, you hire out the specialists to teach and assist your kids. And so being a coach and dealing with parents, I know could be really difficult, but if you're a parent that is like, hey, this is the program that I'm going to sign up my kid for, this is the team that we're going to swim for, and whatever the coach says, I trust. I trust that they're going to take my kid, as far as my kid wants to go, and they're going to push my child past the point of comfort, and that is okay. And I do some private coaching in Denver, Colorado for a swim school called Swim Labs. And I've been doing it for years and years. And I have parents that bring their kids in, and maybe, the kid is 9 or 11 or 13, at the bottom of their age group. and they have a terrible championship season. They don't end up making the A meet, or, they end up going and bombing completely and getting destroyed by the older kids. And the parents come in and they're more upset. They're devastated because they feel like they have put their kids in a position to fail, and that breaks their heart. And for me, I'm like, no, you don't understand what you're giving, with the opportunity that you're giving your child to fail, because we're going to fail so many times in life. And if you can learn to overcome that, and you can learn to overcome adversity at a young age, I mean, you put a young athlete that's going through, a great swim program, is racing their guts out, is, learning how to communicate and learning how to be a leader. You put a 12-year-old athlete swimmer next to one that doesn't do any sports, I would say the athlete is going to have the one up in life. And, being disappointed and being let down by a sport that you love, that is okay. And you're going to learn how to be a better person and a stronger person, and, how to do better next time. But, so I would say my advice for parents that maybe don't come from swimming, that don't come from sports, or even if they do come from sports, let the coaches coach, and it's okay to see your child fail. And, you can be there to help pick them up and to help, motivate them for what's next. But it's okay if they're upset, because that means that they care. And it's just, the beginning of many times, unfortunately, in life that we will have those kinds of experiences.
Oh, that's amazing advice. Thanks, Kara.
And failure is really where success comes from. I can't think of a single story where, somebody said, you never hear an interview where somebody says, yeah, it's been really easy the whole time.
You find me that person. I would like to know how they do it.
Okay. You have a couple of current projects that I want to get to, but we skipped over your time in Georgia, which I really wanted to talk about, because I don't know if I don't know if it's debatable or not, but when I think about, like, when I look at the collegiate system, I don't know if that there was anybody that was more successful than you in the NC2A system. I mean, 18.
There was.
No.
There was.
Well, let's pretend there isn't. Let's focus on you.
I'll talk about her.
What's that?
I'll talk about the one person. So
okay.
I swam at Georgia. I was very fortunate out of high school to be recruited by all of the top programs in the country. And I had my heart set on one program in particular. I thought for sure that would be the one for me. And thank goodness a thing called recruiting trips exists, where you get to go and experience programs for a weekend and meet the team and meet the coaches. And, the one team that I thought was going to be mine, I went there, and trusting my gut, I was like, this doesn't feel like me. I can't see myself here. This doesn't look like me. It doesn't feel like me. And the next trip that I took after that was Georgia. And I stepped on campus, and it was like, like the sun was shining on, everything. And then, of course, I met Jack. And Jack and I clicked right away. I mean, he's just such a great guy. And so I started my career at Georgia, and I am an 18-time NCAA champion. And I get asked a lot, if people are introducing me, or I have to give a bio, people always ask, they're like, is that a typo? And I'm like, no, it's actually, it is 18. That's the real number.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm the second most decorated athlete. The one that's the most decorated is like my idol, Jenny Thompson.
Oh,
so
there
really
you go.
Cool.
Okay.
She's got 19. I got 18. I didn't even know that like these numbers existed until my senior year going into NCAAs. People are like, if you win 3 more or whatever it was. I was like, I didn't even know that. It's not like something I was going for. But, at Georgia, I just wanted to swim well for my team. And 3 out of the 4 years that we competed at NCAAs, we were going for the national championship title, and which we ended up winning one of those years. So it was just like, I didn't care if I won. I just needed to go and get the most amount of points possible, because every little point matters. And one of the years that we got second by 2 points. So it all matters. And being able to swim for your team in an individual sport like swimming, I think just elevates the sport so much. And you get people that have never experienced NCAAs, or even high school kids or parents that watch the meet, and they're blown away by how fast the meet is. Like, it's just like an insanely fast meet for men and women. Like, how are people swimming that fast? And it's like, they're not swimming for themselves. Like all of a sudden now they're swimming for other people, and every swim they do is like they're anchoring a relay and, you know, at their championship meet, and it's like all or nothing.
Yeah. And I always wondered, I mean, we're calling you from Canada, so our system is a little bit different, but I've always been curious, about like the NC2A system, because, you know, you go to the Olympics or the World Championships and it's great, you're amongst those huge crowds, you're representing your country, and there's probably some bonding with some members of the team, but when you're at the NC2A a competition, it's amongst the fastest, most difficult competitions in the world, and you're with essentially your best friends, you're with your family the whole time. What is that environment like in terms of the community that you're going with?
Yeah, there's literally nothing like walking on the deck of an NCAA meet. It's different from Olympic trials. It's different from the Olympics. It's just like there's just this electricity on the deck for all, you know, 3.5 days. And it's like this thick energy, and you can really feel it. And the parents are in the stands and they're going nuts, and like you're with your team on deck and you're going nuts, and like every single swim, prelims and finals matters. And like we're just going all out, and it's the most exhausting 3.5 days that you'll ever have, but it's like nothing else. And sometimes it does go your way and other times it doesn't. And when it does go your way, it's the greatest feeling in the world. And when it doesn't, it rips your heart out and makes you even hungrier for the next year. But it's a crazy intense meet. And I would say you're really, really tight with your team. It's not like the Olympics or, you know, other beats where you kind of want to go and like talk to, you know, people from other countries and do that. Like you're so ingrained in the culture of your team and what your team is set out to do at that meet that, you know, it's just like, yeah, I can't even like, that's the best way I can describe it. It's just like this like thick electricity on the deck. And even if you have no skin in the game, you walk on the pool deck of that meet, like you'll feel it.
You almost make it sound like in swimming you go through 2 retirements because you know,
do absolutely
when you're in your senior year, what in your final you know, NC2A competition your senior year, I mean, you can still swim as a post grad, but not in that system or not at those competitions. What's it like knowing, like, because you'd been to the Olympics during those years, you'd been to World Championships. What's it like knowing that this is kind of like your final competition with your Georgia family?
Yeah, it's definitely, excuse me, it's definitely 2 retirements. I think like for when you go to NCAA's your junior year, you're like, oh my gosh, no way, I only have 1 more left. How can this go so fast? And then when you get there your senior year, you're like, yep, 4 is just enough. Like because the meet it takes so much out of you. So like you kind of want to be able to like leave the team better than where you found it. So like your senior year, it's like, okay, like I'm going to hand off the team to these 3 classes right now. And I hope that, you know, I've given them everything I have. I've taught them things, like I've been a good leader, and they can go on and do great things without me. And I'll obviously be there to support them and, you know, be cheering for them. But yeah, I don't know a single person that has been a senior at NCAA's that's like, man, I just wish I had 1 more year to like go through the ringer with this team. And it's a good amount of time, and it's just enough. And, you know, by then you're 22 and it feels right. So, you know, I was obviously very fortunate to be able to become a professional after that. So I had other meets that I was, you know, still competing at and still going for. But yeah, it was just the right amount of time.
That's great. Kara, I want to ask you one to go back quickly just to the race, your favorite race. And by the way, that's the one that I told Jason would be your favorite. Okay. And so one thing that you said that was really important is that you executed your strategy during the race. My question is, how much of your strategy, or was there a strategy out of the water as well? Like I'm talking about the days leading up to the race. Was there certain things that you did out of the water, mentally, physically, even right up to the, you know, when you're in the back room waiting to come out? Does it involve all that as well, or was it just the race strategy that you executed?
No, I think when you get to a meet like Olympic trials and you're gunning for your spot on the Olympic team, you've obviously been through some championships and some meets like that before. And I think anybody that's at that really high level, like it's not a time to make a big change or try something different. Like you just want to, it's like, all you have to do is not mess with what you like. Just don't mess up anything. Like what you have inside of you, everything that you have going for you is good. And you just got to like move through your day to not like alter that, not rattle that. And so like for me, Olympic trials is 8 days. After I swam prelims of the 100 free, I think I had like another 2 days or something until the 50 free. And I am not the kind of person that can go to a meet like Olympic trials when on a day that I'm not racing and like keep my heart rate low. Like I will be screaming, I'll be jumping up and down. Like I'm such a swim fan through and through that like watching that meet like in person just like drains me. Oh. And so for 2 days before my 50 free, I was actually not allowed to go to the pool during the sessions. The coach knew. He's like, no. And I'm like, come on. No, you got to go back to the hotel.
You got to stay out of your own way, Kara, right?
Exactly. And so I had to watch it on TV, like live on TV, which is like nice, but it kept me calmer. But I had a lot of like downtime, a lot of time left to my own thoughts. And I unfollowed every swimming account that I had on my phone or my computer. I watched like reality TV for like I did everything that like kept my mind off of swimming. And, I didn't let, I at previous meets, like I have gotten so nervous and so worked up, actually previous Olympic trials that like I can't even eat. And I did a really good job of like managing my nerves. I ate, 3 meals a day. Like I did everything that I could possibly do to keep, my body ready because I knew it was ready. And I needed to not mess that up. And so when it came time to swim in finals of the 50 free, I learned from semifinals the day before. I was like, man, I think I warmed up a little too early. And then I had too much downtime before actual race time. And I was talking with my coach and my strength coach about shifting my warm-up time to a little bit later, a little bit closer to my race. So I'd have around 20 minutes from the time I got out of warm-up until I actually dove in. And, my strength coach was taking me through a whole circuit on the pool deck. I'm doing squats, I'm doing push-ups, I'm doing all that. I'm sweating. And then he's like, all right, time to get in the pool. And then, and then my swim coach is there ready to help warm me up. But when I got into the pool to warm up for that race, David Marsh and Peter Veerhoff were there. I think I did like 150 yards. And I came into the wall and I looked up at both of them and I was like, guys, I'm ready. And they were like, you're ready? That's it. Like, let's go. And that was the only warm up that I did. I got out, put my suit on and headed to the ready room. But it was just like, you had this like feeling like, I don't need to do like 2 dives and sprint a 25 and do all this stuff. Like, I just need to have this feeling and I have it and I'm ready. And, there's also something to be said for just the natural adrenaline that's running through your veins at that time. Like there's so much energy inside of you and you got to like bundle it up and keep it under wraps until basically the gun goes off.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing that. It's one of the themes that I'm sort of hearing all along through your career is that you listen really well to your inner voice. There's been a few different, situations from when you didn't like that one set to not picking the one program and end up going to Georgia. And then, just what you just explained in your warm up, how you just knew you were ready. Is this, Kara, one of the things that you like to talk about at your lead summit with the girls? Absolutely.
I think we all have that inner voice. We have a feeling inside of us and that's, when you are at like a red light and it turns green and you're like, I'm going to wait 2 seconds because somebody might run this red light. And then that ends up happening and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I know? Like whatever it is in life, like we all kind of have that, like that inner voice that's telling us stuff. And it's typically right. Learning how to hear it and then learning how to trust it, I think is a skill and something that, you have to work on throughout your life, but it served me well through swimming and then into retirement, into starting a business and, networking and working with a lot of different companies and stuff. Any situation that I'm like, man, I can really see this happening and this feels good and it feels right. That's how I, make a decision to move forward. But if I'm like, it's not the right time or this isn't really the direction I see us going in, like I can reach in and be like, how do I really feel about this? But I feel like, that's kind of like a muscle that I have worked very hard over the course of 20 something years to exercise. And so, trusting my gut and listening to that inner voice, it's very loud and it's prominent for me now, but it's because for years and years, I flexed that muscle over and over again and learned how to trust it.
I think that's a wonderful analogy that you made about it being a muscle that you have to work, because I think it takes a very special mindset to listen to that voice. I was talking to Rory a few weeks ago about how we got into the careers that we got into, or certain education or degrees, and somewhere in my early 20s I started making all of my decisions based on fear or finances, in terms of how much was I going to make from it. And every time I made a decision on that, it was wrong. So I'd be afraid to speak up, or I'd be afraid not to speak up, and it's just not a good driving force. But to I didn't have that, I guess, that culture where I really trusted that inner voice. And I think that the Lead Summit that you're doing is fantastic, that these girls can talk about this openly and talk about their fears without being judged, and having other people build them up, and having the opportunity to help build others up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, about a year and a half ago, I started a Lead Sports Summit, and it's for teenage girl swimmers. And we had our first event in 2017, and we held it in Austin, Texas. And we brought in, Missy Franklin to talk about perseverance, like doesn't get much better than that. Elizabeth Beisel to talk about leadership. And then we had
what a better leader than Elizabeth Beisel. She's team captain.
No better leader, honestly. Yeah, she's incredible. We had a confidence coach, nutritionist, and we just had like 5 women that could help girls. And since my retirement and since Touch the Wall and things like that, I've worked a lot with teenage girls, mostly at the swim school that I work at in Denver, Colorado. And I would have moms that bring their daughters to me, and they're like, oh man, I don't even care if she swims today. Can you just talk to her? And that started happening like over and over and over again. And I had this long wait list to get in for a lesson, like months long wait list. And I was like, geez, like this is cool, but like there has to be a better way to connect with all these girls, because there's definitely a need for it. And I have a lot of answers, but I don't have all the answers. But I feel like we could bring together the women that have all the answers.
Yeah, well,
and so we've been growing, and this year our event is over Labor Day weekend again, which is the last weekend of August, first weekend of September. And our event is in Atlanta, Georgia, and now we have 9 women. So we have 5 female Olympic champions, and we have a sports psychologist, a confidence coach, a nutritionist, and a leadership specialist. And over the course of 4 days, we have 100 and something girls coming, and it's going to be an amazing weekend. And we have a ton of girls that came to our 2017 event that are returning for our 2018 event. And the feedback that we got the first time around, I had high expectations. I feel like just the level of, the pressure I put on myself. I wanted the first event to be great, but I had no idea it would be spectacular. And the feedback that we got from parents and from swimmers, it like brought me to tears every single review that I read, because girls needed it, and parents needed this, and it has changed girls' lives. And so just having the opportunity to host something like, it's not something that I take lightly. It's not, I don't take it with a grain of salt. I know that we have the power and the ability to influence young girls' lives, and there's nothing more important than that to me. And so, we have brought in like the best of the best, and we are going to have a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot. They're going to do, activities and learn a lot about themselves, most importantly. But yeah, so the Lead Summit, that's kind of my everyday full-time job now. But it's a dream job.
Well, I think you've sold Rory on it. I'm a dad to 2 boys, but Rory's got 3 girls who are probably only a few years away from being of age for that clinic. So hopefully you accept Canadian women as well.
We have a couple Canadians coming.
Yeah, and
we're international.
If you ever feel like expanding, I need it too. So if you're ever going to start one for over the hill former pseudo athletes, then I'm in.
it's not that funny. I was literally talking to somebody about this yesterday. Like, I feel like there's an opening, like, for like men to attend something like this. Like I was having this conversation at dinner last night.
Well, it's great.
So who knows?
It's great though, because our daughters and they can come back and share with us the experiences and teach us, right? So it'll happen through osmosis.
Yeah, and that was something that happened to a lot of the girls that came to the first event. When they went back to practice, they went back to their teams, their coaches had them stand up and say, like, hey, can you share with the team what you learned this weekend? And we have video, we have photos of our girls standing up in front of the team, in front of their team, being like, this is what I learned about confidence. And these are the things that these are some tools that you can use to battle, not feeling confident, or some things that you can do behind the box to help you. This is what I learned about nutrition. Like these are the things that we can be fueling ourselves with. And it's not this like open-ended, eat healthy nutrition talk. It was just so specific and geared towards what they needed. And it like all the women that were there, we were like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Like, I wish I'd known this before. And we're like taking notes like for ourselves. But that was actually really cool to just kind of see the effect that it was having. It was already spreading when, we had 76 girls come, and then they could go and talk to their team about it and spread the gospel, and help the kids around them. Because that's what it's all about. It's about helping the next generation and bringing them up and they can learn from the mistakes that you've made and be better for it.
And I'm sure the program itself evolves as well, because you're probably learning as well. Was there any I guess examples of something that you discovered maybe resonated with the girls last year that was unexpected, that maybe you had to make a bigger part of the program this year?
Yeah, it's hard for me, like when I think back on the whole weekend, the first talk that we had, we opened up with like a nice intro session, and then we went straight to the pool and did our clinic, which was just like so fun. Like Missy Franklin led a station on backstroke. I was like, can I get my suit on and learn? Can I get in the water? But like obviously I had stuff to do. Yeah. And Elizabeth Beisel was like teaching, and Eva Fabian and Madison Cox. Like we had a lot of great women, like girls on the national team that were there just to help out. And so we had this awesome clinic outside, music going, like everyone's having a good time, but also learning valuable things. And then our first big talk of the session was nutrition with Jennifer Brunelli, who, her and her husband, former national team swimmers, and then specifically got into nutrition to study it, because she felt like when she was a swimmer, she wasn't getting the knowledge and the information that she needed to fuel her body. She was getting things that maybe were suited for gymnasts or soccer players, but not specifically for swimmers. And so the first night, Jen knocked it out of the park, and we were blown away by her talk. And I was like, man, if everyone bombs after this whole weekend will be a success, because Jen's talk was so amazing. And it just kept getting better from there. Obviously nobody bombed, but the amount of preparedness that the women brought, it blew me away. It wasn't like, oh, I have an appearance where I'm going and I'm giving a talk, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, every single woman came so prepared on their topic and on the things that they specifically wanted to touch on, because it was personal to them. And I think that's what made it so different than, a corporate talk or any other kind of talk that they've given. So asking the girls, like, hey, what was your favorite part of the weekend? What did you get the most out of? And there wasn't like one overriding, like, Elizabeth's leadership or Missy's perseverance. It was really like what they went for. Like I went not knowing anything about like how to fuel my body. So Jen's talk was like the biggest, like most helpful thing for me, or girls that were like, I really struggle with confidence. And so Kristen Shefchunas, like talking about confidence and leading that panel on confidence with all of you guys up there, like that, like hit home for me. And I can't believe, like, I went, I haven't gone a best time in years. And so hearing my hero, Missy Franklin, tell us about, her journey through her career and how she's overcome these times and the steps that she's taking to improve, like that hit home for me. So there wasn't like one overriding thing. It was like, it depends on like, what each girl came for and what they wanted to learn about. So yeah, but yeah, we're growing and we're bringing in more specialists and, just hoping to make it as informative and as fun as possible.
That's great. I was looking at the agenda for the upcoming one, and you do have those keynote speeches again. Have maybe it's something you already do, but have you ever thought about perhaps recording them and streaming them, or having like people can get copies of them if they wanted to refresh their memory, or people that can't make it to the clinic can see some of the highlights?
It's something that we've kicked around, that idea, but I haven't like pulled the trigger on it because. And this is like, I'm trying to go with my gut, but there's something so special and personal about being in that room, and we have the doors shut and it's just, these women on stage and these girls in the audience. And, it's a very personal time and it's vulnerable and everyone is so open. And, we do record it for internal purposes, but it's not something that, we've actually like distributed yet. And it might happen in the future. I'm not sure yet, but it's, you can't top being in that room. Yeah.
No, that
idea, but
Kara, that makes perfect sense. And it makes me think you recently, I think like yesterday, launched a podcast yourself. Is it sort of around the same type of principles, and could that be sort of an extension, or maybe you could share a little bit about the podcast?
Yes, thank you. So Kristen Shefchunas, the confidence coach that I work with, also a dear friend, we have a podcast now. It's called FemPower, FEMPOWER, and it's with Wisp Sports Radio.
Great name.
And it's for, thank you. Yeah, it's for, it's a women's swimming podcast. And we'll talk to female swimmers, but we'll also just talk to incredible women that have been like really successful and hey, like what are some obstacles, or when did you face fear, or when did you have doubt, and how did you overcome that? And then also dig deep. I mean, we talked with Elizabeth Beisel yesterday. I have known Elizabeth for, 15 years. And I had like chills and tears in my eyes listening to her on our podcast yesterday talk about how important, leadership is to her and her journey. And I was like, Elizabeth, I need to listen to this podcast of you talking like every day. Like I need to like wake up to this to like help motivate me to start my day.
So will it turn into a daily show for you then?
I know. I was like, I'll put you on repeat, Elizabeth. She's like, you'll get sick of me after 2 days. Impossible. She's amazing. But yeah, so FemPower, our first real episode with Elizabeth is going to come out on Tuesday, May 8th. And it's only going to grow from here. We have some really exciting and fun ideas planned between Kristen and I haven't like given Kristen enough credit. She's incredible. If you are a female that is struggling with your confidence, if you're a parent of a young athlete that, you want to give them tools, you want to help them with their confidence, Kristen Shefchunas is amazing. She's at Coach_Kristen on social media. She's an incredible talker, but she also works one-on-one with girls all over the country. And she works with like some really famous Olympians too. She's the confidence coach for a lot of the women on the Olympic team and everything in between. But so working with her is amazing because I feel like I get like free confidence coaching, like just like by virtue of her being my friend. But she's also like just incredible and knows how to get the most out of people that come on our podcast and how to ask like the good questions. So I can't recommend her enough, and I feel so lucky to have her as a friend and a colleague.
That's amazing. It sounds like a lethal combination, the two of you. And I know she's an All-American swimmer as well.
Yeah, she's an All-American swimmer from Tennessee. She's a former Division I college coach, so women's swim coach. And I think working in that field for so long, she knew what her strengths were and where her passion was. And, you really do have the ability as a coach to help mold, young minds and young kids. And so if that's like where your passion lies, and it's not so much in like, okay, 10-200s, blah, 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 but it's more like, hey, let's sit in my office and like dig a little bit deeper on why you feel like you're struggling right now. So she kind of followed her passion, and it led to professional confidence coaching.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And for anybody listening, fear not. We're gonna have links to both the podcast, the FemPower podcast, and the Lead Sports Summit in the show notes. So if you want to go and search for any information on these, just go to our website, swimguys.com, and the show notes for this episode will include those links. So we're happy to promote those events and those platforms
guys
as well.
I appreciate that.
Now, you've been so generous with your time, and I know that you might have to get going soon. Do you have a few more minutes? I wanted to talk about an article that you wrote a couple minutes ago. That's one of my absolute favorite articles. So I guess I should
No
let you
friends
answer.
in the ready room?
Yes. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
always wondered about what the ready rooms were like, and it was a great article, but you left me with more questions as well.
Yeah, fire away.
Okay. So no friends in the ready room is exactly what it sounds like. Nobody's there to help you, nobody's there to make you feel better. Were you asked to write about the ready room, or was it just something that you were, that was top of mind that you wanted to let people know about?
I had actually been talking to somebody about just like the whole experience of Olympic trials and what my journey was like. And they stopped me and they're like, wait a minute, this ready room thing, what is that?
Yeah.
And they were like, can you talk a little bit about that? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess, the average person probably has no idea what the ready room is at a meet like Olympic trials or the Olympics. And so that inspired me. I wrote the article for the Players Tribune.
Yep.
And I had no idea like the impact that it would have or the reach, but we got tons of people that wrote in about it. A lot of coaches that loved it and shared it with their teams and stuff. So that was really cool. But I just wanted to be so as honest as I could about the firsthand experience of being in a ready room. And so for those of you that don't know what it is, when you watch something like swimming on TV and you see everybody walk out behind the blocks, where they're coming from is a very small, typically dark room, especially for the 50 free. It's at the opposite end of the pool than like the normal, nice, bougie ready room. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of stuffed in this room like horses, like getting ready before a race, like in the gate. And there's you and like the 7 other people that you're racing. And at a meet like Olympic trials, I mean, you want nothing more than to beat every single person in that room to get yourself on the Olympic team. So it's a really intense environment. And, just by the nature of people, everyone handles stress and everyone handles pressure very different. Some people, they like to get in your head, that their way of handling that is to be outward focused and try to, mess with other people's confidence. Some people like to be, really into themselves and, not speak and not look at others. And, some people listen to music loud enough for the whole room to hear through their headphones. But kind of sticking to like your game plan and having the confidence to know that like what you're doing in that moment is going to work for you, I think is also a skill that you learn over time. But yeah, the ready room can be like a really intense, and you sit in there for like 10 minutes. Yeah. It can be like a really intense environment.
I'm getting nervous. I'm getting nervous right now.
Yeah. I swear, the 50 free ready room, it's like there's scaffolding around you because, most races start at the start end of the pool, and then the 50 free starts at the far end, and they like put together this like makeshift ready room.
It might as well be a utility closet or the garbage room.
It's literally, I've sat in a utility closet for that before.
I first heard of the ready room reading about the 1984 Olympics in LA. There was a breaststroker, the American 100 breaststroker, Steve Lundquist. He was talking about the ready room, and he said Victor Davis he gave him the nickname the Intimidator because Victor Davis was the most intimidating person he'd ever come across in racing. Who was there somebody that stands out as kind of the most intimidating presence in all of your ready room experiences?
Most intimidating. That's tough because like maybe I'm the most intimidating.
Nice. Kara, the Dominator.
Yeah, I mean, I don't let people get to me, but also I'm not an outward, like, I don't want to be outwardly, like, I don't want to affect somebody's race before it happens. Like, I just want to beat them in the pool. Yeah. And so, like, in a ready room, like, I keep to myself. I don't, like, try to make friends. I don't talk to people. But if if somebody asks me a question, like, I'm happy to be there. But yeah, I would say, like, there's nobody that I've sat in a ready room with that I'm like, oh my gosh, they're terrifying. But I wouldn't be surprised if people had to say that about me.
Yeah. Awesome. And how about maybe outside of yourself, who would be like one of the most focused people that you've ever seen? Gosh,
one of the most focused. I don't know. I think 50 freestylers, like women 50 freestylers, we're like a different breed than most events. We're like the racehorses, like the purebreds. And I've sat in a ready room like thousands of times with like Amanda Weir and Jessica Hardy and like, I don't know, you name it, any like female sprinter for the last like decade or so I've been in a ready room with. But I think you kind of learn people's isms too. You're like, oh, like so-and-so likes to talk to herself in the corner. Like, that's just her. Don't let that get to you. And like, you know, so-and-so likes to be super chatty with everybody. And something I remember, it was really bizarre. In the ready room at the Olympics in 2008, we were getting ready to walk out, and there were a couple women in the finals of the 50 free at the Olympics that were moms. And they were talking about how this like pain of the race or the anticipation of the race compared to childbirth. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what a bizarre thing. And not something like I could like also personally contribute to. You know, I was like 22. I'm like, that's weird. But yeah, it's always like a different vibe, and you'll never hear something like that in like a men's ready room.
Yeah.
But
man, those conversations really change as you age. I wonder if in the press conferences after they're talking about Dyson vacuum cleaners or
Exactly.
Well, Kara, thank you so much. Rory, do you have anything that you wanted to add? Or?
Yeah, one last question, Kara. Are you still getting in the pool and training?
$1 million question. No.
So no masters for you.
No, and I have been asked by like every master's team, like that you can, you know, my brother swims on a master's team. He's like, come on, you know, just come, you can just swim on our relays. It's really fun. I'm like, no. I think someday I'll get back to it. But for me, you know, like when I was at Olympic trials getting ready to swim that, you know, last 50 free, I was like, Kara, this is going to be your last race. Like, because I actually was like, you know, your best effort is probably going to get fourth right now. And that's totally fine. And you're going to be so proud and like, you know, drive off into the sunset, but this is probably going to be it, because I felt like I took all of the talent that I was given. And, you know, at 26 years old, I felt like I wrung out every single drop of talent that I had. And I felt like it was the best I was ever going to be. And so, you know, obviously like the shock of like, oh God, like I got second and I get to swim for another 5 weeks. That was something else. But I feel very fortunate that I got to retire on those terms. You know, I didn't have to retire because I was injured or financial reasons or, you know, anything else that happened. Like I got to retire because I wanted to be like, I felt fulfilled in the sport. Like what an amazing thing, what a gift to have. And so I know someday, right? Like, yeah, I know someday I'll get an itch to get back in and probably start doing masters or something like that. But it hasn't hit quite yet. And maybe because I work in swimming too, like I don't have that like itch to be around it all the time, like because I'm always around it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, before we let you go, is there anything that you wanted to talk about or anything that you wanted to promote that we forgot to bring up or maybe we missed?
Oh, no, you guys hit everything. Our podcast, which I'm really bad at promoting because it's so new.
Yeah.
And then the Lead Summit, you know, that's my baby. And that's really what I care most about. And yeah, you guys, you hit it all. Thank you for that.
Fantastic. Kara, thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous with it. I didn't even ask you how much time you had, but an hour's great.
Good. You guys are good. Nope, you're good.
We're good. Great. And next week, we're actually speaking to David Marsh. And I know.
Oh, cool.
So we were wondering if you had anything that maybe you thought we should ask him about or any... nothing embarrassing, but is there anything that you think that maybe gets forgotten or stuff that doesn't get asked of him that you think would be very interesting?
He is I wish I like talked about him. He's such an interesting guy. I only had 10 weeks with him. So we have
we'll have you back on the show if you want.
Yeah, you should ask him. You be like, hey, we talked to Kara last week. You know, my relationship with David, he was the head coach of Auburn when I was at Georgia. And anytime we got second when I was there, Auburn got first. And like me in particular, like I was a thorn in his side for 4 years, you know, at Georgia. And then all of a sudden, like I was like, hey, I like called him up, you know, a couple weeks before Olympic trials. And I was like, hey, David, things aren't going so well where I am. Can I come swim with you? And it was like, I had to tuck my tail between my legs and like go to the enemy, you know, then like, be like, hey, like, I know you and I, went head to head, toe to toe for many years, but like, I need you. And David, he could have said no. David is the reason that I made the Olympic team. He could have said, you know, Kara, it's 10 weeks before Olympic trials. We have our team pretty much set right now. And adding you to the mix will change the chemistry or change the vibe or change the atmosphere at practice. I don't know if I want to do that to the team.
Damn it, Kara, this is a great story. Why?
I know.
Can we have you back someday?
Ask him about it. Yeah, of course. You ask David about it. But he said, he goes, Kara Lynn, you know, thank you for calling me. He's like, I just have a question. He's like, are you trying to swim for the next 10 weeks to fulfill your contract obligation so that, you know, you can retire after that? And I said, no, David, I'm swimming because I want to make the Olympic team. And he was like, all right, welcome aboard. And he brought me on. And that was it. Like that was his one question. Like, are you for real with this? And then like, when I said yes, like he was all in and I was all in. And every day at practice, you know, I came so broken. I was like, not myself, but he would look at me at practice and he'd be like, you are Kara Lynn Joyce. Like, you can do this.
Nice.
And he's like, people are scared of you. They're scared of that name. I'm scared of you. And like, he just like put the puzzle pieces of me back together and like blew that confidence like back into me. But yeah, I need to write a book someday about just my experience with him and what that did for me. But yeah, you should ask him about it.
Well, what an amazing relationship. Because not only did you have to, I don't think you had to be humble, but you felt like you were humbled in going to him, and how gracious of him to just say yes right away. It was
exactly. And every day at practice, I was like the most grateful human being to be there. Like kept to my, like, I don't want to disrupt anything. I'm not going to cause any drama. Like I'll up and I'm going to do everything I'm told. And like, thank you everybody. And, you know, just like, I want to be like the best possible, like student that I could be. And, you know, I only have such a short amount of time to be with him. But yeah, I'm like eternally grateful to that man. And I never in a million years would have thought that like it would be him, you know? So.
Well, that's all. Thanks for sharing that, Kara. Hey, listen, I'm blown away. You're an amazing, amazing person. And I'm so excited for my 3 little girls to listen to this. And I hope to get to meet you one day down the road and when my girls come to your summit.
Absolutely. You guys email me anytime and I'll get back to you. But yeah, if we're ever to meet together, if you guys are anywhere that I am, I'd love to meet you both.
You ever coming to Toronto?
No current plans, but I will let you know.
All right. Well, if you do, then dinner's on us. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. And that wraps up another episode of the Swim Guys podcast. Thank you all for listening. What a great story to end that podcast on. One of my favorites now. That's it. Thank you very much for listening. Please do not forget to subscribe, rate, and review. It really does help us out. Have a great week, and we'll talk again on Monday.